Yeah. Shalom, shalom. This is your Yao checking in. All right, well, let me talk to him. All right. How you guys doing? It is Wednesday morning. Yes? By yourself? All right. I know you can do that because I saw you yesterday. Morning. All right. So we are discussing the Messiah. Um, Yesterday we started with a question, really, and not really a question. I would say um, a request for discussion. And so the request was to talk about the Father in relation to the Son and how um, how they relate to one another. I'm sorry, we've got a couple things that are going on out here. Yeah, we've got a couple things going on out here, and I want to make sure that everything is all right. So there's lots of things that's going on. I'll have to maybe be in and out for a little while. So I apologize in advance. Morning. But yeah, if there's any confusion or anything, we want to get to the bottom of it. Sorry, you guys, just going through. Morning. So we ended yesterday, and I guess I want to do a really brief recap from what we talked about yesterday. The other discussion, the other half of the discussion is if Jesus is not the Messiah, then who is he? Who is he? Is he Satan? Is he someone else? What is this morning? What is the concept that we're dealing with here? And then why do so many Israelites now? Why do so many Israelites now turn away from Messiah? I apologize, you guys. There's a lot going on out here. So there's nobody on just yet. We'll take a little bit of time to develop what it is that we're talking about here. All right, so we left off yesterday talking about, and if we're just, I know I'm going over this again, but if we'll do a brief recap about what we talked about yesterday, we did identify that Jesus Christ, which name is literally printed in the Bibles, as we all know, would be the anti-Messiah, because the description in the New Testament and in the Old Testament around Jesus Christ is accurate, but the name and the image and the doctrine, the lawless doctrine, is inaccurate. Sorry, guys, I'm walking uphill here. Morning. Bike mechanic, how are you?
I'm fine.
Long time.
Yeah, long time. I've not seen you since.
Yeah. But before then, it's been 2 years,
Yes,
right?
yes. The other day, your motorbike fall down and I take it. When the car is coming, I take it from the way to inside. Do you remember?
Yeah.
And you was riding it and they were chasing you. So you put it and you go somewhere there and you leave it out of row and I take it inside and I give it to
Okay, it's okay, young man. What's up?
You're overcharging us for the bike.
No, it's okay. It's fine. No worries. I'm sure, but it's okay. But okay, so what we're talking about here is the concept of Messiah. If this false Messiah is prevalent in the world today, then what does that mean for scriptural understanding? And why do so many of our brothers and sisters deny the Messiah? And so we talked about why yesterday, but today we want to continue where we left off in the conversation yesterday. We started off just identifying identifying Jesus Christ as the false Messiah, understanding that actual Messiah comes from a heritage, comes from a bloodline, comes from a people group who are historically black. And we see the image of Jesus Christ being historically white, and literally having a different doctrine, a lawless doctrine, the doctrine of faith only, that you can really break the law and be forgiven each time as long as you have faith. And we know that this is not the spirit of Messiah that is lawless in nature like this. So we do have and are dealing with in the modern era the anti-Messiah as the most prevalent religious figure in the world today, right? And so to put that into perspective, that is literally the prophecy of Revelation, the prophecy of Daniel coming to pass right before our eyes in a non-physical form, but in a spiritual form. So the anti-Messiah is there in front of us already. We know what he looks like. We know what groups he comes from, and we know what his doctrine is. He's right there for everyone to see. And so when people see this entity, they then reject along with this entity, which you should reject this entity. People reject along with it the concept of Messiah and the actual history of Messiah. And so you can't do that. You can't link the concept of anti-Messiah with actual Messiah. The term anti-Messiah literally means in place of Messiah. It doesn't necessarily mean against, it means in place of, right? And this person, and if I've got stuff in my beard, because yesterday I had stuff in my beard, I apologize about that, you guys. So this means the anti-Messiah will be and appear to be like Messiah. He'll be his opposite, but he will be like a similar entity. Does that make sense? If you have somebody, let's just say you have a person that is trying to copy you, but you know that they're not you. They're trying to copy you, so they're just off. Do you see what I'm saying? It's bizarro Messiah. Do you see what I'm... So I just got a couple things going on here. So what you can't then do is reject the whole prophecy, because the prophecy is true. You see the anti-Messiah. Do you see what I'm saying? We live in the modern era, so everybody's heard of the concept of anti-Messiah.
Do they got German Shepherd here?
I'm sure they do. Why?
He said he had a German Shepherd and he had a tiger for reptilian.
Come on now. Baby, you don't remember him from the Pink Place? He's the bike mechanic from the Pink Place. Uh-huh. I remember you. Yeah. So what you don't want to do is throw away the Messiah with the anti-Messiah. Because if the anti-Messiah is here, that means the Messiah is real too, right? And so what a lot of Hebrews like to do is throw away the Messiah altogether, because the one that we see is the wrong one. If you actually do the research, his name is Yahusha, right? We can prove what his name is. We know that going forward before that he was predicted to come, and we know that the Old Testament is Messiah heavy, right? It's literally the understanding of Messiah that we had in Christianity is correct. We just had the wrong Messiah. We had the wrong image of Messiah, if that makes sense to you. And so let's go ahead and start with what we talked about yesterday, what we ended yesterday. We discussed that in the Old Testament, it's very, very, very easy to prove the situation of Messiah that we have in the New Testament. From what we see in the New Testament, what we already believed is that the Messiah was a supernatural entity that was both somehow God and man, that was created from a virgin birth, lived a sinless life, was killed and resurrected. We have to find these elements in the Old Testament to ensure that this is what was predicted to come, and then also what we have, because these are the things that we're looking for. So if it satisfies these things, then what we have is genuine. Do you see what I'm saying? Even though we have the disingenuous picture and listenness doctrine, we don't see that from the text. That's an interpretation of the text, if that makes sense to you guys. So what the necessity is laid on us who are believers, who are coming from the 21st century, looking to the first century to try to figure it out, that we have to go beyond that, back to the original writings, to see if the situation for Messiah that we have is present in the text. And what we see that it is. We see that a supernatural entity is with Elohim in the beginning, right? So Bereshit in Genesis 1, we get Bereshit, bara Elohim et hashamayim et haaretz, right? And so in the beginning, Elohim created the heavens and the earth, right? So Elohim is plural. It's a plural form. And in order to have a plural form, it does indicate plurality. You can't just say God if it's saying gods, plural, right? And so the weird part about it is Elohim, even though it's plural, is used in a singular form. You don't, in Hebrew, the case is specific, it's case specific in Hebrew. So if you have a plural adjective, you have to have a plural noun. If you have the plural verb, you have to have the plural subject, right? You can't mix and match plurals. Everything has to agree. So with the word Elohim, it doesn't agree. The grammar around Elohim treats Elohim as a singularity. Do you see what I'm saying? Even though the definition indicates plurality. This is important, y'all. This means that there is single father, but the single father in heaven, the Most High, and along with him are other entities. Does that make sense? It doesn't just this round table of gods like in the Greek pantheon. That is true. It's not true with the angels and the council found in the Book of Psalms. Because that situation is accurate. Of course, not with the Greek gods, but the situation is accurate. But the main Elohim the main Elo is so far higher than the others as to make the council not look like a council, as in like a Congress with the most high atop it. Do you see what I'm saying? This is the picture that we get from the text, and it starts right in Genesis, right? Elohim created. So you get automatically more than one, right? And this is where you have in the book of Genesis of the New Testament, we talked about yesterday, the book of John, chapter 1. The book of John, chapter 1, which also starts Bereshit. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with Elohim, and the Word was Elohim. Do you see what I'm saying? Automatically, from the very first onset of the understanding in the New Testament, you have a greater picture of what was going on in Genesis. Do you see what I'm saying? You automatically get a deeper interpretation of Genesis. Did people understand before Messiah came how that operated? Maybe they did in part, but they definitely do now with the image of the invisible Elohim in front of them. If that makes sense to you guys. That when the scripture says in Mashiach are hidden all the treasures of knowledge, you have to understand that it be so, because this is the active creative force that was driving creation, or the active force that was doing the creation with the word, with the command driving it. In the beginning was the word, and the word was with Elohim and was Elohim. You understand that that explains the need to use Elohim in that position instead of the name itself, Yahweh. If you understand, in chapter 1 of Genesis, the name of Yahweh is not used. It's crazy, right? You would say, oh, automatically you would use the name of the person that's doing the creating, right? You don't hear the name Yahweh until chapter 2. And what critics of the Bible have tried to posit is that, oh, that means that there are different writers, and this part of the scripture is written by this group of people, and this part of the scripture is written by this other group of people. And we know that to be false because of the spirit that runs through, lasting longer than the entire generation of a group of writers. Does that make sense? The spirit we can literally prove is directing the text from the very beginning in multiple languages. This disproves writing groups. You can't have a continual theme of writing in multiple generations and in multiple languages from a writing group, from any different group of writing groups. No, it has to be, it claims it is the spirit of Elohim moving in to write the scriptures. You see what I'm saying? Just like it says in Peter, right? Is that 1 Peter or 2 Peter? Boys are gonna get me. But men inspired by the spirit of Elohim wrote these things. There is no private interpretation, right? Just men that were quick by the spirit of Elohim wrote these words, and you can tell because it matches. Even from the Genesis 1 to John 1, it matches conceptually in a way that is not apparent. Do you see what I'm saying? You got to go a little bit deeper to see how deeply it matches, at least from the English perspective. In English, we don't have it. We have God. In the beginning, God, right? That doesn't display to you plurality. That's singularity, right? But Elohim indicates plurality. And Yahusha is indicated to be the creative force. I was there with him before there was a world, as he's described in Proverbs. So we see the supernatural creative force. It says in the book of Hebrews, by whom created the worlds, right? This is Messiah who created the worlds. It says in the book of Hebrews, he created the worlds. We know that word worlds means eras in time, not like planets and all that. It means eras in time, but this is the sub-creator, the active ingredient, right? Do you see what I mean? It makes a lot of sense. And so this is why you see in Genesis 1, let us make them in our image. Do you see what I mean? Because there is more than one ingredient there at the beginning. There is for sure a Most High, but there is also the one that comes underneath him. And this is what the New Testament describes. The New Testament says that he is the first fruits of all creatures, that he is the beginning of creation. Do you see what I'm saying? This is what the New Testament tells us. This the secrets that are hidden in him. What's up?
I just want to see what it was about.
Oh yeah, this is still a continuation about the Messiah. So we so we know this to be the case because the New Testament tells us very specifically how this Elohim grouping comes to fruition in the world that we have here before us, right? So we understand from Genesis 1 that in the creation process, in the very beginning, there was another entity, at least one, involved, right? We talked about the gap theory yesterday, so I won't go back into gap theory. But if you move along from there through Genesis, you're going to still come to a couple places where there's a strange interaction or where there are strange interactions between the Elohim of the Bible and Abraham and Jacob and Isaac. How does he interact with Isaac? But for sure with Jake and with his sons. So we see these things happening, right? And we see a a strain of indication telling you this entity that is interacting with Israel is not the Father, is someone specifically assigned to Israel, right? We get this in the book of Genesis. I believe this is well, before we get there, Jacob is introduced to a figure in the night while he is walking along in Genesis 32, and they begin to wrestle, right? This is just this very strange interaction with the man Israel, who would at that same time become Israel. In this strange interaction, he is wrestling with the man, and he wrestles with him all night. The man pops his hip bone out of socket, and Jacob continues to wrestle, right? So he's not letting go. And so he says, let me go. And he says, I will not until you bless me, right? And so he blesses him. He calls him a new name, and he says, what is thy name? And he says, why ask of you after my name, seeing that it is wonderful? Who is this mysterious, unnamed figure in Genesis that is going around in an active way, influencing the lives of this particular group of people? In fact, the name Yisrael means he will wrestle with Elohim. This is the prophecy that is given right there at that moment by this entity that goes unnamed, that is very important in the history of Israel, so important that it gave us the name of Israel. Do you see what I'm saying? There would be no Israel if it wasn't for this mysterious, unnamed entity. If that can make sense to you guys, right? This we know is the Messiah because we know the mystery of Messiah was unfolding as the generations continued on. But if that's not enough, indication for this spiritual understanding and this other character involved in this spiritual understanding, then we move forward in Genesis to chapter 47. I think it's 47, where Jacob, the man Israel, years later, is in Egypt. Is in Egypt with his son Joseph, and Joseph has, through trials and tribulations, delivered his family into Egypt, right? For them to be prosperous there, for our ancestors to be prosperous there. After these things have come to pass, and Joseph has gone on to become king of Egypt, prince of Egypt, right? Then I'm just out here making sure everything is all right. Then then Israel is getting ready to bless the sons of Joseph, and he goes to bless Ephraim over Manasseh. And forgive me if I'm wrong about which one is which. And he says no, and his son Joseph says no, this is the elder. And he says no, this is the one that'll be greater. And so he goes on from that and says, may Elohim bless the lads the Elohim of my fathers Abraham and Isaac, the angel that followed us our entire life and carried us. What? And so here we have a literal indication that Israel, years after meeting this angel, is saying that this is the angel that has delivered us and carried us and walked with Abraham and with Isaac. That this unnamed entity, who I don't know what his name is, but I know he's under Yahweh. Do you see what I'm saying? I know he comes in the name of Yahweh, but I know his particular name. This is in Genesis. This is in our records that we have in the text. Going back the farthest with at the inception of Israel, there you have this mysterious salvational figure. You can't undo Messiah from the history of Israel, because then you have to undo Israel too. You have a supernatural salvational figure who named you. So how can now that problem? Who called you by your name? How is that an issue today? Do you see what I'm saying? How now, if you cleave to your ancient heritage in the way that a lot of Hebrews say they do, there could be no way that you divorced yourself from the concept of Messiah. And if you can't do that, there can be no way that you divorce yourself to the one that we have now, even if he appears to be different and in a different name. You can't deny the correlation. The correlation is one for one. Supernatural entity whose name is mysterious, who comes to save you. And this is just, we haven't even left Genesis yet, right? This is why when people say they don't believe in the Messiah, it's literally, okay, well, you have to understand the text better. If you understood the text better, then there would be no way that you'd be able to say, oh, this prop doesn't fit in the way that I expected it to. Oh, this instance doesn't line up, and it appears his doctrine is different. There'd be no way that you'd be able to do that, because you would understand intrinsically that Messiah is the one that called you. You know what I'm saying? Messiah is the one that called you by your name, that called us from before there was a world, right? So this is what we understand going into Genesis, going out of Genesis. It really is very conspicuous. The Messiah is very conspicuous in the text, especially in Genesis. And so we go into Exodus, and they say if you can't find Messiah in each book, then you're not looking close enough. And I'm not going to go into each book, but in Exodus, there are some very significant instances of the Messiah's appearance. For one, right in the beginning in Exodus 3, where we have the very famous Ehyeh, Asher, Ehyeh. More people would say Ahaya, Asher, or our people would say Ahaya, Asher, Ahaya, and then use this as a name to call on. And I don't want to offend anybody, by my conversation, and how kind of flippantly I'm using names that people view as holy names, right? I don't want to offend anybody, but we know that the name of Elohim is Yah, right? We know that. And we know that to the best of our information, from the best information that we have. And then
Take me to the place.
I'm going to take you to the place. Don't worry. And so I can do another video on Yah, because this is not a popular name that's in use. Many people use Yahuwah, many people Yahweh. We'll have to, dig deep. In fact, the next video that I'm coming out with is going to be Battle for the Name of Elohim 3. I believe this is the third video, maybe 4. and then we'll explain all of the evidence that we have for the name that we use. So we'll wait on that one. And then I've got a lot of information on the channel about that already. But again, I guess I'm in, what am I in? Exodus 3? But yeah, people that use Ahia, that's where we were. People that use Ahia are missing the very next verse after that, is moreover, I am Yahweh, the Elohim of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That is my name. That is my memorial for all generations. So we see that here in that next verse, he doesn't identify himself as Ahia. They'll say that Moses said, "What is your name? What can I say? Who can I say sent me?" And he says, Asher. He says Ahia, Asher, Ahia, or Ehye, Asher, Ehye, which means I will be who I will be. So when you call on Ahia, even in that form, you're saying I will be. If you call on Yahweh, you're saying he was, is, and will be. If you call on Ahia, you're saying I will be. The aleph in the front in Hebrew grammar is the indicative of the imperfect tense and the first form, which means I will. So grammatically, you're worshiping yourself if you call on Ahia. This is respect to anybody that's out there viewing this video, but the way I feel is the more that we know, the better we do. And with that being said, in that same text, what's up, baby? They're apple pies? Yeah, no. We can go without the meat pies. Yeah, that's fine. No worries. Who? Who? The one that's talking to Jeremiah? Let me to him. I'll take care of him. And well, you don't know what I'm going to do. Let me talk to him. I know him. So, where were we at? We're in Exodus chapter 3. We all know this stuff. This is stuff that we've all dealt with before. And we're running long right now. It's at 30 minutes. But in Exodus chapter 3, when Moses goes and sees the burning bush and investigates the burning bush and finds out that it's not being consumed, it says Yahweh looked out of heaven and Elohim spoke to him from the bush. Do you see what I'm saying? And then we have this mysterious interaction about the name of person that it is who they're dealing with. You have to get that in the text it literally says Yahweh looked from heaven, or Yahweh looked and forgive me if it doesn't say from heaven, but Yahweh looked and Elohim spoke. Do you see what I'm saying? It differentiates who is doing the action. Now, you cannot use this in all situations to identify plurality, because it's ambiguous in a lot of, because you can say, people have said that even when the prophets are being approached, and this is ambiguous. I don't necessarily use this as a proof text because it may be, it may not be. I believe it to be. I believe it's significant because of the wording used. But a lot of people do say that whenever it says the word of Yahweh came unto Isaiah, came unto Amos in the 5th year, came to Jeremiah. Do you see what I'm saying? It's literally saying the word of Elohim, the word of Yahweh coming to a prophet, right? The word of Yahweh came to Jeremiah, right? So is that an indication of just the message coming in? Like he pops up and this message is coming into his brain? Or is it literally a personification of the literal word of Yahweh? Are they using the word of Yahweh like name? In the beginning was the word. Do you see what I'm saying? It's very possible. I can't. Sometimes I go and I go with this concept, but I don't necessarily teach it because I can't prove it in the text by the text. There's the references for sure, but the text doesn't indicate that it's a proper name, and it wouldn't indicate that it's a proper name. This is one of those ones that's ambiguous, but the one in Exodus 3 is not ambiguous because you see clearly two different entities grammatically. And Yahweh looked from above, and Yahweh looked upon Moses, and Elohim spoke. Do you see what I'm saying? That may look insignificant, but in Hebrew, you wouldn't have to say Yahweh looked and Elohim spoke. You could just say, and Yahweh looked and spoke. Why introduce another word into the situation? Unless there was another active entity. And then in the interaction, the entity is asked its name and the answer that he gives is really, I am who I will be who you know I will be who I will be. It's almost, the answer has some attitude. And this is what's why that the answer has some attitude. Almost like, you don't know who I am? Do you see what I'm saying? It's wild. Because by this time, this is Moses, the very writer of the one of the words later on that are indicating who this entity is by his ancestors, Jacob and Abraham, right? So do you see what I'm saying? He will later write these very words indicating who the entity is, right? So he's not putting these things in there to just by happenstance. This is the way that it's understood. Do you see what I'm saying? And this is what you won't get from the English text. You just have to break down the Hebrew to find these things, right? And so later on in Exodus, is it 23? And there's many, many, many different instances here. And this is just to prove that there is an alternative entity that is in play at each interaction that Israel and the descendants of Israel have all along throughout the Old Testament. That the concept of an other entity that is interacting with Israel is not unheard of. For people that go to Isaiah 3 and say, I alone, and there is no salvation besides me, and say, okay, well, it means there's nothing else out there, or there's no other salvation besides him, then we have to deal with that in the text. And if we can't deal with it, then we're looking at the one in Isaiah 43, we're misinterpreting that understanding that no one stands beside Yahweh, that there are many entities under him, but no one stands beside him. There's no salvation without me. And what's the name of Yahweh? Yahweh is salvation. So Exodus 23. Exodus 23, I think verse 20, I can't remember. But you guys will see it. It says, I will send my angel before you to carry the way, right? Well, what does it say? I butcher these all the time. I apologize, but you guys go look up the text because I know roundabout what it says. I will send my angel before you. Listen to his words and make sure that you take heed, because he will not pardon your transgressions. Right? What's up?
I told him that I go there. I was hungry.
What school do you go to?
Zion.
So you vacated?
You vacated.
So you're hungry, so you came over here to see?
No. Like, I was passing and I see them. And they asked me that, where am I going?
Where's your
My house is there.
Okay, it's closer to Banana Avenue?
Yeah, but no. It's close to Banana Avenue, but across the road.
Okay, across the road by the school.
By the school.
Okay.
And I'll pass by the fence
Okay. Yeah. So that place. Okay. Well, hold on. I got something that you can do for me, and then you can go ahead. But hold on, I'm doing something right now. So in Exodus chapter 23, it says, I will send my angel before the way to make the way for you. Take heed and hearken to his voice, because he will not pardon your transgressions. So you have here, and there's an element that I missed from the Genesis quote from Genesis 47 that we'll revisit here as well. It says, hearken to his voice. So do you hear what it's saying there in Exodus? This is the Torah. This is instructions that we say that we live by, right? So if we live by the Torah, we live by these first 5 books, then the Messiah, the angel that will not pardon your transgressions, or maybe because he has clearly, by indicating pardon transgressions, he has the ability to pardon transgressions. But in this instance, he won't. Do you see what I'm saying? This angel is brought up in the same sentence with pardoning transgressions. Do you see what I'm saying? And if you go backwards into that Genesis quote in 47, for what the man Israel says to Joseph's two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, when he's blessing them, he says, may the angel who redeemed us from all evil bless the lads. He, in that instance, using this mysterious unnamed angel in reference to redeeming evil, redeeming sins, pardoning transgressions, right? There's no new thing. All of these things have been set in stone since before time. Do you see what I'm saying? All of these issues that we have with Messiah, oh, no man can die for your sins, and all of these other wild things are not at all new. The concepts that you're dealing with are not in any way original. They're all ancient concepts. So when you see a pagan god from the Egyptian era saying, "Oh, well, I'm born of a virgin," or I resurrected from the dead, or I am the King of Kings. These are ancient concepts that come from the original concept of the Son of Man coming to redeem the world. You know that Adam knew these things. You know that Noah knew these things. There are prophecies going forth since the very beginning. Moses wrote Genesis 1, but Adam lived it. It's there. Do you see what I'm saying? So Adam knew the prophecies of Messiah. Adam knew Messiah. The entity they're interacting with is who comes later. Do you see what I'm saying? So these concepts in ancient history, going back to the beginning, are well known among the nations. Even if they appear out of context, you should recognize them because they're ancient concepts, not because Christianity picked it up from elsewhere. Well, then where did the Egyptians pick it up from then? Where did the Babylonians get up from? Where did any of these people come up with these concepts from? The concepts exist because they're prophecies that were already in play. And these are false copies, right? You have to understand that when the information comes out, if the information about a prophecy comes out, the devil is going to try to beat you to the prophecy. Every single time, he'll try to beat you to the prophecy. Proof of that is the fake return of Israel in 1948. That's beating, because in the future, the actual children of Israel will come into Israel and actually live peacefully. So the devil beat us to the punch with a fake group of people. Oh, we're going to claim we're the Israelites. We're going to claim that we're living in peace because we've got the Iron Dome protection system. And then we're going to fulfill this prophecy before it actually happens. Right? So you can see that this is one of the devil's strategies. This is one of the devil's devices, is to be able to preempt prophecy because people don't know prophecy well enough. Right? So don't get thrown off by these supposed correlations in understanding, because the world absolutely still remembers. Do you see what I'm saying? The world still remembers ancient prophecy. And this, it's expressed in the reality that we live in today. You may see these quote unquote supernatural concepts appear in pagan religions, but they're only in the most superficial terms, because can only be because they don't have the fullness of what we see in Messiah, going back for as long as we can see, right? Okay, so I've gotten to Genesis and Exodus, and I'll go ahead and break for this one. If I don't think anybody's on here, but if there's any questions, just put them in the chat box and we'll grab them. And then we will continue forward past Exodus tomorrow to deal with some of the other messianic concepts that we see Old Testament, continuing further just to solidify and confirm. If it's not enough for you already, we'll continue on forward to part 3 tomorrow to really dig and delve into other prophecies in the Old Testament to, just to further solidify and found these supernatural claims that we say that the New Testament makes on its own. And this is just not the case. It's really documented in the Old Testament very clearly. Okay, you guys, that's all I got. Shalom, shalom.